Global markets tumble as fears about war in the Middle East escalate. The Australian economy and the pace of jobs growth cool. And Netflix is back, recording a record quarter. Welcome to Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. It is Friday, the 20th of October, 2023. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, after the show, your daily interview today is with financial advisor Andy Darroch.
Yes, so not often do we actually get a listener on board, but Andy is a financial advisor. We're always talking about financial advisors, and he's regularly in contact, and we thought, well, let's have him on the show and get his view about what's wrong with the financial advisory world. And Andy doesn't hold back. He thinks there's quite a bit wrong with it, and he has a few solutions as well.
Yeah, it is a good chat. It's coming up a little bit later on, Sean. The main story this morning, though, global markets are in turmoil at the moment as the situation in the Middle East escalates, including US President Joe Biden cutting short his trip to the region.
That's right, Michael. Wall Street tumbled yesterday morning and the local market followed. The S&P ASX 200 by the end of the day was down more than 100 points, or almost 1.5%, to close at 6,982 points. The tech stocks led the way lower. But I tell you what, it was pretty bad across the board. Some of the more defensive sectors, like the utilities and telcos, did least bad, I suppose. Apart from gold stocks, there wasn't anywhere to hide. The big banks were down between 1% and 2%. BHP, Woodside and Woolies all fell more than 1%. And they were actually some of the better performers. Rio Tinto, Goodman Group, QBE, they all fell about 2%. Macquarie Group was down 3%. The reason? Fear of war in the Middle East and what that means for oil and other commodity prices and for economic growth. Michael, it wasn't just equity markets over the past 24 hours or so. Bond yields surged. Investors head to bonds in times of uncertainty, and that pushes up their price and lowers their yield. Investors want the security of government bonds at the moment, unsure of how the crisis in the Middle East will play out. The Aussie dollar suffered from Middle East problems over the last 24 hours. It's struggling to stay above 63 US cents, while oil and gold prices remain elevated.
Okay, what is the latest news coming out of the region?
It really isn't good. Israel, at the urging of the US, has agreed to allow limited humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza over the Egyptian border. That is good news. Israel says it will immediately cut off aid flows if any of it makes its way to Hamas. US President Joe Biden cut short his trip after an attack on a hospital in the Gaza Strip. We talked about that 24 hours ago. Palestinians blame Israel, while Israel said it was the work of a Palestinian group. The two sides continue to disagree over the cause of the explosion. Israel presented intelligence. It says backs its claim that the explosion was caused by a failed Palestinian rocket targeted at Israel. Hamas says that's a lie. Meanwhile, the US has a very heavy military presence in the region, and it's getting heavier. Also, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is in Israel and will visit other nations in the region in an effort to prevent the conflict from widening.
Okay. Now, Sean, you mentioned that the market ended lower. Was there much corporate news around?
Plenty, Michael. There's always plenty of corporate news around. Qantas' share price hit a 14-month low on the back of higher oil prices. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission said it wants to dig deeper into significant concerns it has related to Woolies' purchase of pet company Petstock. Corporate travel reported a big jump in revenue and a more than doubling of underlying earnings for the September quarter. Telix Pharmaceuticals fell 1% following preliminary results from a prostate cancer trial. Net wealth was 7% lower. The wealth management company said outflows in the September quarter were at elevated levels due to withdrawals from high net worth clients. Fund manager Perpetual fell a couple of percent. It held its AGM yesterday. There was also news from Origin, Transurban and ASX, which I'll get to shortly.
Oh, you're teasing us, Sean.
Oh, very exciting.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment with that and the rest of the day's business news. Sean, the economy put on 6,700 jobs last month, less than expected, showing that interest rates are gradually cooling the labour market.
Nothing happens real fast in the labour market, Michael. The Bureau of Statistics figures show the unemployment rate fell to 3.6% from 3.7% in August. That's kind of good, but it's because the participation rate fell. Fewer people were actively looking for a job last month. The positive figure in terms of jobs growth reflected a 46,500 increase in part-time workers and a nearly 40,000 decline in full-time workers. The labour market needs to add around 35,000 workers each month to stop the unemployment rate ticking up. The numbers bounce around a bit, so it's worth looking over the last 3 months. Now, on average, the labour market has put on about 23,000 jobs per month. You need 35,000 to stop the unemployment rate from rising. The numbers probably won't sway the Reserve Bank on interest rates too much. Far more important are the September quarter inflation figures due next Wednesday. After yesterday's announcement, though, Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers said Australia has plenty going for it, but unemployment is expected to rise on the back of higher interest rates and concerns around China, the Middle East and Europe.
Now, Sean, the takeover battle at Origin continues with an independent expert's report of the $18.7 billion bid for the energy giant, suggesting that the offer is actually a little bit light.
Yeah, so the expert, Grant Samuel, that's a company, not a person, so Grant Samuel Proprietary Limited.
That's very confusing, Sean.
It is. Grant Samuel valued Origin at between $8.45 and $9.48 a share. Now, the midpoint of that is $8.96. Brookfield and EIG have offered shareholders $8.81, 15 cents lower than that midpoint. There's another wrinkle in this. Grant Samuel reckons that by the time the deal is done, Origin's share price could be worth another 40 cents. The report adds to calls for the bidders to up the price. Now, remember last week, Michael? I know you do. The ACCC gave the green light to the deal, and then earlier this week, Origin upped its profit forecast for this half. While the board has recommended the bid, shareholders, led by Aussie Super, which owns nearly 14% of the company, may well want more, and I reckon they'll get it.
Sean, the crisis in the Middle East is causing tensions locally, with Labor ministers Ed Husic and Anne Ali, who are both Muslim, accusing the Jewish state of war crimes through collective punishment of Palestinians in Gaza.
They said Australia has failed to adequately consider the plight of Palestinians. Husic told ABC Radio that Palestinians are being collectively punished for Hamas's barbarism. He asked why city landmarks hadn't been lit up with the colours of the Palestinian flag as they had for Israel. Ali agreed with Husic, as did Greens leader Adam Bant, who said it was time for the government to catch up.
And staying on the same story, Sean, Foreign Minister Penny Wong said the government was planning another repatriation flight out of Tel Aviv yesterday, and that it will be the last flight in the foreseeable future. Australians have also been advised not to travel to Lebanon.
Meanwhile, the boss of Australia's intelligence agency said he'd consider going undercover in mosques and other religious places in search of extremists if there was enough rationale to do so. There's been all sorts of criticism overseas about agencies doing just that. ASIO Director General Mike Burgess, speaking in the US, said while Australia's terrorist threat assessment hadn't changed, the agency has seen an increase in neo-Nazi and Islamic extremist activity. Meanwhile, Andrew and Nicola Forrest have donated $10 million in humanitarian aid for Gaza, matching the federal government's commitment.
Sean, electricity demand fell to a record low during the September quarter, really as a result of benign weather and a pickup in rooftop solar usage.
And there's some good news here because it should bring down energy bills next year or at least limit any increases. The Australian Energy Regulator said as a result of the mild weather and increased renewable penetration, wholesale electricity prices in the national electricity market were less than half what they were at the same time last year. And apart from South Australia, prices are now something like what they were in the third quarter of 2021, which of course was before Russia invaded Ukraine and we had energy prices spike, etc. Household and businesses don't pay wholesale prices for their electricity, but the market is a key determinant in what happens to bills next year, according to the Australian. Households have had 2 years of 20% plus price rises. With a bit of luck, that ain't going to happen next year. Good news.
Yeah, that is good news. Now, Sean, we often mention toll road group Transurban in the market report at the beginning of the show, and you teased us with it at the beginning. It's probably the first time in history that toll roads have ever been used as a bit of a tease. There's nothing particularly kind of enticing, is there?
Oh, I don't know. Speed limits. You know, when I was travelling in Europe, what amazed me is that the speed limit's 130 kilometres an hour. This is in France. Jackie wouldn't let me go above 110, which I was quite happy. I mean, I could have, Michael, but I was just as scared as she was. So, but The speed. And I mean, apparently Germany's even worse. I can't believe how fast they drive on these toll roads. And there are a lot of tolls. So you could get to a day, like a full day's driving could be certainly 30, 40 euros in toll. Oh, actually more than that.
And was the quality of the road, the condition of the road, was it excellent?
Spectacular. Absolutely.
So you get what you pay for.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe that's a good slogan for toll roads. Toll roads, you get what you pay for.
Yes.
This is why I'm not in the marketing division, Sean. Anyway, back to Transurban. It held its AGM yesterday, and long-term boss Scott Charlton handed over the reins to former CFO, now CEO Michelle Jablko.
Transurban is Australia's 16th largest company. It's worth $37 billion. It builds, owns and operates toll roads here and in North America. Pretty steady business, really. Tolls are generally linked to the consumer price index. So as inflation rises, so do tolls, and that's helped Transurban. Its long-term boss, Scott Charlton, has stepped down. His decision. He's been replaced by Michelle Jablko. She used to be the CFO, as you mentioned. Yesterday, she told shareholders that toll road operators had a role to play to stop cities being choked by population booms. Fair enough. She also released September quarter traffic figures. It kind of was interesting because it just shows that things are getting back to normal. In fact, better than they were pre-COVID. Transurban delivered its highest ever quarterly average daily traffic of 2.5 million trips per day. That's incredible. 2.5 million beeps on your toll tag.
Sean, if we were to make a list of the most unpopular jobs, if you were talking to people at a party, toll road operator would have to be up there. Kind of if you walk in and said, oh, yeah, I'm a journalist or something along those lines, people go, oh, yeah, okay, all right. That's fairly inoffensive. Toll road operator, and they instantly go, oh, you cost me money. There wouldn't be that many up there that you would react like that to it, would you?
No. A parking fine officer would be the worst.
Oh, parking inspectors. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
that'd be the worst.
Okay, so that's number one. Toll road operator number two.
Possibly number two. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out.
I work for an energy company, a retail energy company.
Oh, yeah, that's up there too. Okay, maybe toll road's now down at number 3.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we're putting together quite the list. Sean, a couple of smaller retailers, Nick Scali and Beacon Lighting, have reported improved sales momentum, which is a good sign for the economy.
Both companies have had AGMs over the past week, and Nick Scali, Chief Executive Anthony Scali, said profit for the current half to December is likely to be above previous forecasts. Foot traffic's down, but sales conversions are up. Overall, turnover is expected to be lower, but not by as much as forecast. At Beacon, after a slow start to this financial year, sales have picked up since September.
ASX's board of directors has narrowly avoided a second strike at its annual meeting yesterday, Sean, with 21% of shareholders voting against the remuneration report.
It was just shy of the 25% needed for a strike. Now, let me try and explain this. Strike 1 was at last year's AGM. If there'd been a strike 2 yesterday, the whole board would have had to go up for re-election. 25% is that magic mark. Shareholders haven't been happy with the ASX Limited since it mucked up its CHESS replacement project, which basically really blew up late last year. The CHESS project was written off. There was a $250 million write-down as a result. ASX's share price is down 20% this year. Now, Chief Executive Helen Lofthouse, who actually wasn't involved in that previous project, she's relatively new, told the annual general meeting yesterday the exchange remains on track to announce the design for a new CHESS system in December. This will be subject to decisions by a new advisory group.
And one last one, Sean, before we get to international news. Qantas has dumped plans to buy charter operator Alliance Aviation after the competition watchdog opposed the $614 million deal.
The national carrier decided not to pursue legal action to get the deal done. In a statement to the ASX, Qantas said both companies believe the arrangement would have created customer value without lessening competition, but acknowledged there was no reasonable path forward for the deal at present.
Do you reckon that's just a case of them going, we've got enough on our plate right now?
Yeah. I think there's a bit of that at Qantas at the moment. I think they're like, why pick fights when we don't need to?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, international news time. And Tesla shares fell on Wall Street yesterday after Chief Executive Elon Musk tempered expectations on the company's new Cybertruck.
I just like this story because there's Cybertrucks involved.
It feels like the kind of thing that people in the 80s making a science fiction movie go, what do we call this truck? We shall call it a Cybertruck. And it feels like it's just stuck around.
Yeah, well, Elon has picked it up anyway. I'm surprised it's not Cybertruck X. Cyber X truck, something like that.
It would not surprise me if that's where it ends up. He has no problems at all with changing a brand halfway through, does he?
Like 80% through. Now, yesterday he said it's a great product, but basically it'll take a couple of years before it can provide significant positive cash flow. The Cybertruck pickup is Tesla's first new passenger model in more than 3 years, and its only new offering expected to hit the market anytime soon, according to the Wall Street Journal. Musk said Tesla could get to the point where it's producing roughly 250,000 Cybertrucks a year, but that might not be until 2025.
Sean, Netflix was another Wall Street giant to report earnings, and there's bad news for subscribers. Prices are going up.
The good news is it's only in the US, UK and France initially, but I reckon it's only a matter of time. The streaming group posted its best quarter for subscriber growth in several years, 8.76 million new customers. That takes its global subscriber base to 247.2 million. That's a lot of people. Now, the main reason for the growth, according to Netflix, is that its crackdown on password sharing and theft has resulted in a bunch of people taking out a subscription, or at least investing in paid sharing accounts where you can nominate someone else to be on your account as long as you pay a bit more. Netflix is also trialling an advertising-supported version of its service, much lower subscription fee, but you get ads. In the markets it's being trialled, about 30% of customers have taken up the offer. In after-hours trading, Netflix's share price jumped 13%. Now, Michael, before we leave this story, do you know the most watched program on Netflix during the September quarter?
Oh, one of the new ones? Something like Squid Game or one of those, which is not that new anymore, but go on.
No. Suits.
Suits came out so long ago.
Yeah. I once actually caught a plane. I got upgraded to first class and I was in the same cabin as the Suits guys. And I, of course, didn't recognise them. Had a chat to them. That's all fine. Got off at the airport and, you get out first when you're in first class. Fantastic. I'm there. I'm talking to one of the guys and someone comes running up and says, "Can I have a selfie?" And I looked at him and I thought, do I know you? And the guy next to me that I'm talking to goes, "Yeah, sure." And they take a selfie and I look at him and I said, "You're obviously more famous than I realised." Anyway, it was one of the guys from Suits.
What did he say to that? I mean, how does someone acknowledge that? Do they just go, "Oh, yes, no, it's nothing"? Or to say, yes, I am, Sean?
No, he said, yeah. And no, he said, no. He said, "Oh, no, we're just in a TV show called Suits." And I said, "Suits? That's famous. You must be famous." He goes, "Oh, no, we're just here on a promotional gig." But it wasn't Meghan Markle wasn't on the plane. It was the red-headed woman and the really odd lawyer. I don't know if you've watched it, but...
Louis Litt.
Louis Litt, yes.
Yeah, well, the actor who plays Louis Litt. He's the character.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 highlights very quickly. I know we're running out of time. 2 highlights for me. Number one is the fact that you just referred to Meghan Markle, who is one of the kind of most famous people on the planet, as Meghan... sorry, I can't even get this out. Meghan Markle.
Yes. She's very famous, huh?
Yes, one of the most famous people on the planet. And the other thing that stood out for me is the fact that I'm sensing a trend here. Your kind of ability to have conversations with very well-known celebrities and not realize that who you're talking to, because first it was the Suits people, then it was Taylor Swift, again, one of the most famous people on the planet. And here you are, just best mates with them, having a great chat.
Yeah, they didn't know who I was either.
So you're even then, aren't you?
Hey, you know another show that really did well on Netflix, Virgin River. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen it. It keeps getting suggested as a For You show. Mm-hmm.
So I think it is the worst show that I've ever watched a full season of. You see really bad shows and you turn it off. This was like some sort of, I don't know what was going on in my mind. And I watched a full season, and definitely the worst show I've watched a full season of.
I don't know what to say to that. I mean, you've only got yourself to blame.
Totally.
If you acknowledge that it's that bad, yet you watch the whole season, then clearly it was doing the trick.
Anyone that watches it knows what a nurse practitioner is. You'll have to watch the show to work that one out, Michael.
Well, now I'm going to have to. All right, Sean, up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. You're speaking today with financial advisor Andy Darroch.
Yep, Andy is a listener and he is a vocal listener. He's in touch with us regularly. We thought, well, let's come on the show, Andy, and let us know what you think about your industry, because it's such an important industry. So great chat with Andy.
Indeed. It's coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Friday, the 20th of October, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed Business News. Have a great day.